So thanks for coming. As I was saying, as it's January, we didn't really have anybody else, any decent speakers lined up, so John and I sort of agreed that we'd try and fill the gap ourselves. It was like, what does Mark know anything about? Well, he sort of likes Internet of Things, so let's try a talk about that. So the first thing I had to try and do was come up with a title, and that didn't really go very well. So yeah, it didn't really start with a title, but it's an Internet of Things sort of thing. So let's cover quickly what I will talk about this evening, which is how I got interested in the Internet of Things, the kits I've had, what I've got now, how you connect and you control all your stuff, and then we'll have a look at what's next for the Internet of Things. And I won't be talking about anything that's too techy, and I've decided not to bother with security and privacy because that's a whole nother talk.
Who cares? That's good.
Yeah.
Privacy.
So, back in the early 80s, two things happened. I got a ZX81 second hand off my uncle in about 83, I think it was, with the 16K expansion pack. And I went and saw the Roth Khan. And those both kind of got me thinking about, well, fascinated with technology and kind of a view of the future where you can affect your surroundings without actually having to do anything much. The technology just does it for you. Step on much later in life, and my wife and I moved into a new house, and she said, we're in a much busier road now, I'd really like a spy hole at the front door, so that I can tell who's coming to the door. And I thought, we can do better than that. So I bought a Ring doorbell, which, you know, I thought that solved the problem better than a spy hole. I'm not sure she'd agree, but it meant that you can see who's at the door from anywhere you've got your iPhone or you know, a device with you. So that was kind of my first. I think it was the first IoT thing I bought. It all kind of happened around the same sort of time, but I think this was the first thing. And that was the start of the adventure. So it sort of started a 4-year voyage of mainly frustration, to be honest, but sort of discovery as I went along as well. So yeah, started off with a Ring doorbell, and obviously once you've got a doorbell, the next thing you need is some lights. So I went out and I looked at some various options and settled on Hue lights. I haven't brought any of those with me this evening. And obviously once you've got your doorbell and your lights, then you need a way of controlling them, so you get an echo. And that all seemed to work quite well. So we had, I think, 3 lights around the lounge, and you could tell Alexa to turn them on and off, and I thought this was great.
Are you finding that massively distracting?
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Is it going to interfere with your film?
Possibly, I don't know, but I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got some lights, we've got doorbell, we've got Alexa. So the next thing was some Belkin smart plugs, because I've got a pump that I wanted to be able to turn on and off at various times. And then there were the bedroom lamps, so I didn't want to put Hue bulbs in those, but if I had a couple of these, then I could turn them off with Alexa, and so far it's all working smoothly. At some point I stopped using these and started using TP-Link ones. I can't remember why now really, but I think they might be a bit cheaper. I've got 7 of them now, so I have a bit of a problem. I think I might need to see somebody about that. So then we added some outdoor cameras and some smart plugs and some smart smoke alarms. And then a switch, because some people, it turns out, don't like talking to Alexa to turn the lights on. And then I thought I'd install a Nest thermostat, but my plumber talked me out of it and made me put a Honeywell one in, which sort of worked, but I wasn't particularly fond of. And then you sort of throw in some speakers, and it's all started to become a bit of a mess, and your IoT folder on your phone starts looking a bit like this. So, yeah, that was that. And then a little while later, just to add to the mess, I decided that I would get an indoor camera to go with the outdoor cameras, which is really cool. The main reason I like this is because it does facial recognition, so I can tell who's walking through the hall. And it also recognises my dog. So sometimes it'll tell me Meg's in the hall, and sometimes it'll tell me Meg's in the hall when actually it's in post. So it's not completely flawless.
Sorry, Jim. That's all right.
So yeah, the AI's got a little way to go there before it can actually tell the difference between a dog and a letter. But that's that. So with all those devices in the house, the network started to get a bit congested and things would drop off and it wasn't working brilliantly. And when you've got two teenage girls streaming Netflix as well, you need something a bit more than the standard router. So I settled up on BT whole home Wi-Fi, which you just plug one of these discs into your router and then pop the other ones around the house, and they talk to each other over Wi-Fi. So they use one channel as a sort of backhaul between the discs, and then spray out Wi-Fi as normal on another channel. And it works really well. So other mesh networks are available, but this will work with any ISP. I'm not with BT. I have quite nice fast broadband at home. So that was that. And then of course, if you've got lots of things on your network, you need to be able to monitor it all. So I've got this little box that sits under the stairs called a Monitor IO, and that basically keeps an eye on the broadband connection, because I kept on having problems. Occasionally I would find I'd have problems where maybe the internet was off, or maybe it was an internet connectivity problem in the house, I wasn't really sure. So I can look at this and it'll tell me whether the broadband's gone down or whether it's just the other device dropped off the network. That's quite useful. And when I checked last night, there were 45 devices connected to the network in the house, so I don't know what half of them are. Yeah, that's quite a lot of things. So having that many devices on the network most of the time works quite nicely, but a couple of weeks back I basically had to reboot the house. So I got to the point I was trying to get the Skybox working upstairs and it just wouldn't have it, and I ended up having to turn off the 3 BT hubs and the router and 2 switches that connect everything together that's wired up, and 3 Skyboxes, and yeah, fortunately that doesn't happen very often. So at this point in the evening I was going to wow you all by using Alexa to turn on a flashing light, but I forgot to bring a lamp with me, so that didn't work. But kind of the dream really with IoT is to be able to shout out, computer do this, and have it do it, but more often than not the reality is like this.
Computer? Computer? Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
Keyboard. Oh, great.
It was just an excuse to include that clip, really. I didn't know. So we've got all this stuff in the house, and most of it talks to Alexa, and that's all fine. And most of them will also work with the Google Assistant. is also good. You can set up routines on both of these, so you can, rather than just relying on the built-in sort of controls that it gives you, you can set it up so that when you shout out a keyword, it will do a number of things. So I've got mine set up to say, if I say good night, it turns all the lights off in the house. If I say red alert, it turns the lights in the living room red and plays the red alert klaxon, which I don't use very often, but it's quite funny. So most things will work quite nicely with that. And then of course, there's the Apple HomePod, which I don't have, but fewer things work with this because they have to work with HomeKit. They've got to be HomeKit enabled, and not every IoT device is certified for HomeKit. And that is where things like, getting a bit more into the sort of nuts and bolts of it now, but this is where things like Homebridge come in. So Homebridge is a piece of software that you can install on any computer. It will run on a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it's a Node.js server. Basically sits there pretending to be a HomeKit device, and you can connect all your non-HomeKit devices to it, and then Siri can see that, and you can control your HomeKit devices through it. I haven't done this. It's one of these things where I keep getting my Raspberry Pi out and going, right, I'm going to do something with you, and then I don't. But it looks like quite a good little project if you want to start playing with controlling IoT devices. It's one of the many IoT projects that I've not had a chance to play with. Another way of sort of doing more than the basics is to use IFTTT, which is if this then that, which is an online service, and it lets you basically take two services or two devices, and if one thing happens on one device, then something else happens over here. So, you know, people do things like if it's going to rain, turn the lights blue, or you know, if I've got an email, I don't know. We're going to come back to lights. Flash a light, I don't know. The other thing you can do is stuff like if your smoke alarm detects carbon monoxide, turn the boiler off. If they're all connected up, which is quite a handy thing to be able to do. And the last thing I was going to talk about in this category was Home Assistant, which is something I was really keen on. It's another home automation piece of software that you can run on the Pi. It needs to be one of the more recent Raspberry Pis, this one. And it lets you run everything from one web-based dashboard, which looks like this. So that looks really, really cool. And definitely something I want to have a play with, but there are a couple of things stopping me. Vendor lock-in. So last year, Google bought Nest a few years back, and last year Google said, there's this works with Nest program over here, and you know it's great with your APIs, lets you control your Nest products from IFTTT and other places, and that's going away. You can't do that anymore, and everybody went, oh. So they sort of said, oh well, okay, you all seem a bit upset about this, so if you don't upgrade to a Nest account, you stay with your Google account, then you can still use IFTTT and everything else. But the problem is that in order to do a lot of other things on your Nest, they want you to upgrade to a Nest account. So I ended up doing the upgrade without really giving it enough thought, and then found that I couldn't use a lot of these services to make my kit talk to other things, which was a bit annoying. And there are other issues like the Nest account doesn't work with G Suite emails, which I use, and blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, at the moment, I'll not try too hard to play with outside of your environment, Google. So at the moment, it means that I can't really integrate with any third-party stuff apart from Alexa and the Google Assistant. And
What is all about, Mr.?
Don't know what you said there. And then, of course, this happened. So I don't know whether people heard of the news last week, but Sonos basically turned around and said, right, all your legacy devices, which are basically things that they were selling 5 years ago, we're not going to give them software updates anymore after May, and if you've got a system with legacy devices on it, then that will stop getting software updates as well, and at some point, basically, you won't be able to use it anymore. So, people weren't very happy when they got the email, and so there was a lot of shouting at Sonos on the on Twitter mainly, and fortunately, after I intervened, we got another email from Patrick Spence. He sent me an email personally to say that he heard you, and we did not get this right from the start, and they apologised, and they basically said, all right, well, we'll figure out a way to let you still have your software updates, and I still think it's going to be a bit crap, but I think it's going to be slightly less crap than we thought it was last week. So, but this does kind of serve as a warning that when you buy a bit of hardware and it relies on the software as a service, then at some point you're probably going to stop getting software. So it's not like just going out and buying, a stereo with some speakers and you can expect them to last for 15, 20 years and they'll be absolutely fine. Because the software service is going to go away at some point. Okay, so we've got to this point. I've taken some things off because it was getting a bit cluttered. But to rationalise things a bit, I decided to make some changes. So the first thing I did was in the Black Friday sale, I got rid of I bought the Nest Hello doorbell instead of the Ring doorbell, which was a bit, well, the Ring doorbell worked fine, but that's the first generation device, and the main issue I had with that was there's quite often a bit of lag between somebody ringing the doorbell and the doorbell ringing. So it's a Wi-Fi ringer, and quite often you'd hear actually. So this has a chime on it. So you could hear that outside, and then 10-15 seconds later you'd hear the one inside going. The dog's already going nuts anyway, so you know somebody's in the dog. But that wasn't great when you're out and about and you want to be able to see it on the mobile phone. So I thought, all right, we'll switch to Nest. A couple of things on that. It takes a weird voltage. It's an American device basically, so I had to change the voltage thing. Thank you, transformer, and I had to put in a wired chime as well, because obviously when you've got a wired chime, that rings straight away, whether or not the broadband's up. And doing that means that I've now got all my cameras in one app. I haven't got to go to Nest and then Ring to find which camera I want to look at. And I'm only paying a subscription to one company for saving my videos. It's still bloody expensive, but it's one subscription instead of two. And then I swapped my crappy old Honeywell thermostat for the Nest thermostat, which is pretty. Yeah, so basically I'm all in with Google Nest now. One of the main selling points of the Nest thermostat is that it's supposed to learn. They call it the Nest Learning Thermostat. I think it's a bit of a slow learner, but hopefully over the next couple of months it'll figure it out. I keep having to sort of tweak it, but I guess that's the whole point. And the sort of last thing I added recently was a Nest Hub, which is about that size. It's got a little screen on it, and I've got it basically sits next to the telly and does a slideshow most of the time, but you can ask it to show you the cameras, you can control the lights and everything else with it, and when somebody comes to the door,
Moo-Moo's is at the front door.
so if it recognises the person's face, then it'll tell you who it is, which is quite nice. I think it's nice. Nice touch. So upstairs I added this is a Hue infrared passive IR sensor. So that's sitting in a room just off the landing, which means that when anybody walks past and when it's dark, you're not fumbling for a light switch because the hue light will come on in that room, so you don't get dazzled by turning on a light in the hall. So that's quite a nice little touch, I think. So I'm going to talk quickly about one of the alternatives that I looked at, which was Lightwave RF. Lightwave are a British company, and they're the only company I've found so far that make sort of wall plate light switches and sockets for the UK market. So there are quite a few of these in the States, but this is the only one I've seen over here. And I really wanted to put this in because it's got an API. You can programmatically do stuff with it. This is the Generation 2 stuff, so you can actually get the status of the lights back. You can say, is that socket on, and it'll tell you whether it is or not, which is a great idea. But I've already invested a lot of money in the hue lights, and I couldn't really justify the 160 quid I think it is for the starter kit for one switch and a hub. I was a bit like, Rrr. So, but the reason I wanted to do this was because I showed you before the remote control switch I had for hue, and so I had a normal light switch and then the hue switch next to it on the wall, and people would keep turning the normal light switch off, which meant that the hue stuff then stopped working. So the way I've got around that is with a £5 little thing that screws over the top of your light switch, and then you mount the hue switch on it, and nobody can accidentally turn the lights off. And it looks actually quite nice on the wall. So that was how I sort of dealt with that. So what's next for the Internet of Things then? So I am a great believer, I mean we talked about vendor lock-in, and I'm a great believer that all systems and everything works better when everybody's working to an agreed set of rules, and we've all decided we're going to play nicely together, and we're not all fighting and sort of saying no, we're not going to work like that anymore. What I really want is a united federation of things. Which is good because just last month the Project Connected Home over IP, which just rolls off the tongue, was announced, and this is a project that Amazon, Apple, Google, the Zigbee Alliance, who are another sort of standards body that a lot of IoT firms work with, are all on, looking at ways of connecting home devices over the internet protocol. IKEA, Samsung, Smart Things, and Signify, which is apparently Philips Lighting, and Somfy are also on board. So there's a whole bunch of all the big players really looking at creating an open source standard way of connecting your Internet of Things, which is going to be great. I think it's going to be developed and maintained on GitHub, and it gives me hope that at some point in the future I won't have some of the issues that I've had up until now getting things to talk to each other. So really the potential for IoT in the future, I think, is really only limited by our imaginations. I mean, what more could we want than a AI-powered IoT self-cleaning litter tray? This is actually something that was announced at CES this year. And I was looking for sort of examples of ridiculous things this afternoon. But actually, this looks really cool. The videos, if you look on their website, at icuddle.com, it's very, very clever. It's going to scoop all the poo out and back it up and sanitize the kitty litter for you. So, okay, I mean, it's not for everybody, but I thought that was quite fun. I just need to get a cat now. And then the last thing I was going to show you was this, which is another thing from CES, which is Weber Connected Smart Grilling Hub. So Weber have got this Smokefire range of grills, and they've got a hub that you can buy that plugs into it, which uses the June OS, which there's an oven you can buy in the States called June, which gives you all these recipes and will sort of make sure the oven's at the right temperature and everything. And apparently this is going to help you make better beef burgers, I guess. I don't know. So that's what's coming in the future. Do you have any questions?
What's involved in training the face recognition?
So in the app, it basically says, we've seen some new faces, do you know these faces? And you go through and go, yes, 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 yes. And then it will show you all the faces it knows, and you can basically go and put names to them. So you put names to the faces, and then sometimes it will have two different sets of pictures of the same person. So you can say that and that is the same person, and that's how it starts to learn who. It's not foolproof. It often confuses my wife with her sister, and also somebody else that we know who's got blonde hair. So I've just deleted those two people from the sort of stored memory bank now, to mainly to stop Laura saying, why does it think I'm Karen? But also I'm thinking that we started building up the database with the one camera in the hall. Now I've got the one at the doorbell. I think that's better because obviously it's straight in people's face. So the other one was a lot of the time it was side-on view. So I'm hoping that will work a bit better. But it's quite nice when the doorbell rings and it goes, Mum's at the front door. She can go, I'm not here. So yeah, it's quite handy. Anybody else?
So what's next in your household?
To be honest, I haven't really seen anything else at the moment. No, I mean there'll probably be more plugs. There's bound to be other things I can switch on and off just by using a plug, but I haven't figured out what yet. But there's nothing I've seen sort of coming down the line that's got me interested. I mean, I like all the Nest stuff. I like the fact that my smoke alarms and my thermostats and everything, all that stuff is on the same on the same platform, because like I said earlier, if the smoke alarms go off and the boiler goes off, I think that's nice stuff. But I can't think that I've seen anything. My wife will be very pleased to hear that I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether you have a monthly spending limit.
No,
because at what point? Because there must be a value for money aspect to this for turning lights on and off and answering the door. Even though obviously it's tech that you want to understand and use, I get that. But up to a point, you sort of have to make a decision about how valuable that function is.
It just arrives in the house. So I don't normally discuss it much with Laura because there have been a couple of purchases recently. So we bought we redid the lounge before Christmas, and I said, all right, one thing I really want in here is a soundbar. So I bought the Sonos soundbar because I already had two of the Sonos speakers, so I wanted to have the surround sound, and that did get debated. I'm not sure she actually said yes, go ahead and buy it, but we did talk about it before I got to it. So yeah, but things like turning the lights on and off. I mean, it sounds silly, but you can set things up in groups. So when I hit one switch now, I've got 6 lights in the lounge that all come on together, and you can cycle through like different scenes. So you can basically go into TV watching mode where most of the lights come off, and there's just like some dim lighting behind the telly and dim lighting at the back of the room and stuff like that. So it is, that does. I think there is a little bit of value. I'm not sure I don't think you can really put a figure on it, but it does save me a bit of time, and it just feels quite cool just to go click and have it go into sort of cinema mode. So yeah.
Do you have any examples of your IFTTT?
To be honest, the ones I used to use, I think really things like switch the. I don't know if I still use IFTTT for this or not, or whether it's a Hue routine now. But I used to have one where if it's sunset, turn the porch lights on.
Yeah.
So it's just silly things like that. So that does kind of add a little bit of security and things. And you can do like they call it presence mimicking. So it'll make it look like you're in the house when you're not. So when we go on holiday, the lights,
useful.
yeah. So all the lights come on and off in the house to make it look like we're in. One of the main reasons. So we've got an old house. When we moved in, all the windows were crystal windows. Putting a camera up is a lot more visible and a lot cheaper than installing an alarm system. So having cameras at the front and the back of the house, I felt, was a better deterrent than having some sort of alarm there, because people well, it would make, I think it would make most people think twice. If it's got that, what else is in here to sort of keep an eye on the place? So that was another reason for it. And as I say, you know, the doorbell initially was because Laura wanted to know who was at the door. Maybe a spy hole would have been better, I don't know.
What about security mode? You know, when people were hacking into Wi-Fi TV monitors and shouting at the
So
TV?
you missed the first slide where I said I'm not going to talk about security.
Oh, right.
But yeah, that is an issue. Well, let's talk about that a little bit then. So a lot of the cheaper stuff that comes out of China, like baby monitors and things that are not branded, they will use like a standard off-the-shelf operating system for it, and it will never be patched.
Yeah.
So when they find, you know, researchers find a vulnerability, you're basically screwed with that one. If somebody can get onto your network and get onto that device, then you're stuffed. And the Ring doorbell was an issue with that initially, where if somebody took the doorbell off the mount and put it into reset mode, it would start broadcasting your house's SSID, so your Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah.
Your Wi-Fi address and the passcode for it.
Yeah.
So they fixed that pretty quickly. So the more reputable firms and the stuff where you're paying a subscription and you've got, you know, a bit of support from them, then there's less security worries. But if you've got some knockoff device from China, then all bets are off really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you gonna use Hasio? Are you gonna bring?
I would like to. Google have said that they're going to open up the APIs again on their stuff. So there's going to be a Works with Google Assistant program. In fact, that might already be out. I'm not sure, but yeah, I would like to do the Home Assistant thing because it does look quite cool. I mean, what I wanted to do was have like a dashboard somewhere in the lounge where I could see whether everything was on and off. And I mean, the houses do have a domain name for the house, so at some point, obviously, I mean, everybody does, right? So at some point, the idea is to have like something running on a web server in the house that I can connect to when I'm out and about and be able to see at a glance what's going on. But with most of the things being in the either in the Nest app or HomeKit enabled, there's really only 2 apps that I need to check now anyway to see what's going on, but it would be nice to have it all in place. So yeah, at some point, hopefully, if I ever get any spare time, yes.
I'm in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Okay.
A really good other thing is, if you want a bit more techy, is ESP Home.
Right.
You can take an ESP32 and it will program it up for you.
Right.
You don't do any coding, so if you want to add a sensor to it,
Okay.
you can just attach a few wires to it.
Yeah.
And then and it will actually program it up a bit and then
It does sound like fun. It's definitely something I want to do.
and then that connects to Home Assistant. So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
We'll
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Cool. No. Mhm. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is by way of an agenda. So I'm going to quickly cover what the Amazon Echo is. So the Echoes are the devices, basically, and Alexa is the service. So Alexa is the brains behind the whole thing. And then we'll go into how each of them work, because the hardware does certain things, and the service does certain things. And then we'll look at Alexa skills, which is basically allowing you to create things that you can ask Alexa to do. Start with the devices themselves. So they're actually fairly recent. 6 years old in the States and about 4 years old here. You probably know the Echoes particularly as a smart speaker. Essentially it's just a speaker with a microphone in it. But the newer devices also have some kind of visual elements as well. So if you're building your skills and you kind of want to do skills that cover everything, then you probably would be looking at the visual devices as well. They're pretty straightforward to set up. They really just need a bit of power and Wi-Fi. Power obviously because it's an electrical device, but Wi-Fi because it's connecting to the internet. So Alexa is living in Amazon, it's living in the cloud. So without an internet connection, it's not going to work. And you configure it using an app on your phone. So if you're an Android or an iPhone, it should be fine. You configure it, it shows up as a device. If you do any of the kind of stuff that Mark's doing, which is this smart home kind of thing, so smart bulbs, plugs, that kind of thing. They show up as devices as well. So, I'm sure I'm telling you things you already know, but asking what can it do, so it can do things like you can ask it the time, it'll tell you the time. You can ask it questions and it'll pull something from Wikipedia. You can play music. Music's quite common, and that's the reason I got it. It plays Spotify, but it plays lots of other things. It'll play all the Apple stuff. It prompts you for Amazon Music. Amazon own Audible, so if you like your audiobooks, it'll play those for you as well. So, if the kids need a bedtime story, you can get that. So it works pretty well. And it controls IoT devices as well, so you can say, Alexa, put the lights on, and the lights come on. So how does that work? So if you strip one out, actually most of it is speaker. Especially the tall ones, it's got a bunch of speakers in here. There's actually just at the top of it, there's a little circuit board, and that's where the guts of it is. Most of it, because the brains are living in the internet, essentially, there's not a lot inside the hardware itself. So it's got a microphone, because it needs to listen to you. And it's got a decent speaker, I like the sound of the speaker. It's good enough for me. So how it's doing what it's doing. We'll cover the Echo first. So this is the device. So what the device is doing, this is an Echo Dot, it's a little small one. It's listening for a wake word. So you call it, so you say, Alexa, do this. You can also have other wake words. So you can have computer if you wanted to. If you want to go to Star Trek, so you can have computer do this. But it's listening for that word, and you can have any three of these. So if your wife's called Alexa and gets really upset about the fact the machine pops in, you can change the name of it. So it's listening for that wake word, and when it gets that word, the word's what they call an utterance. So what I've done, I've tried to put in bold the terminology you'll see if you go into any of the docs, if you want to actually build something like this. So the wake word is almost irrelevant to you because the utterance is what you're looking for. You're looking for what somebody has asked. So what time is it? So it sends that, turns it into a little WAV file or a little audio file, sends it across the internet to the Alexa service, we'll call it for now. The Alexa service does magic, sends it back again, and then there's your answer. So the device really is just sending things back and forth across the internet. So Alexa, this is where the real magic's happening. So what Alexa is doing, Alexa, if you are a developer, you may have some familiarity with AWS. AWS has a whole bunch of services, but you can actually use some of the services that Amazon are leveraging for the Alexa service. So one of the services you can use is called Lex, and what that does is you take an audio file or a waveform of you speaking, and it does a bunch of machine learning algorithms to it, and will tell you what you actually been said. So something like automatic speech recognition, if you said, what time is it? It will analyze the waveform and go, that's English, and it is the words, what time is it? So you'll get it. That waveform will become text. And then it applies more machine learning to it to get some idea of what the intent of that is. So it's just a bunch of words, but the intent is that we'd like to know what time it is. So we'll get deeper into that in a minute. And then it sends the results of its analysis to a function that fulfills that requirement. We'll get into what Lambda is in a minute. But Lambda is the brains of the operation eventually, once it has kind of worked out what you're trying to say. So Lambda gets a bunch of information, and it computes a response to your request. Oh, the time is blah, blah, blah. It creates a bunch of text. The text gets turned into a waveform, like going the opposite way. So it's now it's turning a bunch of text into speech, and there's a whole bunch of languages and dialects. Welsh is very good. I particularly like Welsh. Text to speech, and then it sends that back down the wire, and then Echo goes. The time is 11:17. Okay, so that's the process. Alexa is doing all of that stuff there. Your skills live in the Lambda part here. So Alexa will do all the rest of it for you. So if you wanted to make your own skills, there's you sign up as a developer, basically. This is not an AWS account, that's different. You know what that is. You sign up as an Amazon developer. And they have a Alexa skills kit. So the Alexa skills kit is their version of an SDK. It's an ASK, which is kind of funny once. And then what it's doing under the hood is, I'm going to just go through the terminology. So again, you're going to hit the docs and work out what it's trying to do. The intent is what you're trying to do. We're going to take the example of ordering a pizza, for example. So if you run a pizza company somewhere and you wanted to have somebody say, "Hi, this is Bob's Pizza, send me pepperoni." The intent is order a pizza. You define the words that invoke your skills. So order a large pepperoni pizza could be the phrase that you speak into the Alexa. So that would map to the intent of ordering a pizza. And slots, which are equivalent to variables, they're basically the required information in order to get the right pizza to you. So you might have something like the size of the pizza, small, medium, large, pizza type, margherita, pepperoni, that kind of thing. This is a hugely simplified example, but that's the principle behind it. And then the invocation name is Bob's Pizza. So pizza place across the road is not going to fulfill your order, hopefully, because it's going to come from Bob's Pizza. So if you're this is with the utterance. So order a large pepperoni pizza from Bob's Pizza. Breaking that down, the intent is ordering a pizza. The slots are large and pepperoni, because that defines the pizza you would like. And the invocation name is Bob's Pizza, so it's going to be your pizza. So if you're a programmer, you can think of the invocation name as a namespace. So instead of Pizza Express fulfilling the order, it's Bob's Pizza is going to fulfill the order. And this is pretty much a function at this point. So order pizza with 2 arguments, the size and the pizza type. So that's what your Lambda function will be doing. It will receive that information, call to that function, and then you will write all the code to fulfill your pizza. So Lambda, yes, we're not going to go too deep into Lambda really today. Lambda is a whole talk in itself. But if you're looking to build custom skills, this is where you'll end up. And that will be what you saw in the last diagram. You will receive a bunch of JSON information about the intent, and then you will wire that up to have your pizza delivered correctly, hopefully. However, if you want to get started quickly, and this is the way I would recommend getting going just for your first attempt, is there's a whole bunch of what they call blueprints. And these are templates for sort of models of behavior. So I didn't know if I had Wi-Fi today, so I've done a bunch of screen grabs to show you what these blueprints are like. But you can really get this up and running in 2 minutes. It's very, very quick. So if you go to the Blueprints Amazon page up here, once you've signed up for your developer account, there's a whole bunch of these different blueprints. I'm going to pick how many days, because that's a pretty straightforward one. So you would go to this page here, you would click how many days, and then you get presented with a form. So if you click this, you'll get an audio sample of the likely response that you're likely to hear. Obviously, you're not going to get here. So yeah, let's make one of our own. So we click that, and then you're presented with the event that you would like to count down to. So I'm just going to do Christmas. So you fill in the date of Christmas. It's an annual event, obviously, so you want to repeating. At the event, and you get a bunch of messages. So what you could do here is, this is the opening message. So Alexa will come back and say, "Great news! It's X amount of days till Christmas." So you can put that in, "Yo ho ho, Santa says," blah blah blah. You can just basically override these as you want. And then we'll work for this one bit. So how many days is the default name, but you can call it Christmas Countdown. And it goes off and creates your skill, and you're basically sitting there for about a couple of minutes while it creates the skill up here, but it's building it is super quick. By the time you boil the kettle, it's done. It's incredibly fast. And then on your app, you say enable this skill, the skill you just made, and then you can start using it. And then once you've sort of tested it and you're happy that it's working, then you can hit publish to the skill store, and then Bob's Pizza has its app. That's it. That's really all there is to it. So. That's about as fast as it gets. Yeah, that's awesome. All right.
No, it's more of an observation, really. Oh God, I was one of those people. Anyway, no, I was quite pleased to see the countdown there, because that was one thing I tried to do with
Yeah,
Alexa before, and I absolutely failed to get it to work. I got it.
it is embarrassingly quick to put
yeah.
these things together.
I managed to sort of get it working on in the test environment, but I couldn't deploy it into Lambda. But I was trying to do it from scratch, so it's interesting to see they've got those blueprints there.
Yeah, they're very fast, and there's a standard. Maybe I skipped over it. And I've lost it. There's a 3 or 4 sort of standard skill types, if you like. So there's like video skills. If you've got one of those little video ones, there's music skills. There's IoT skills for controlling smart devices and that kind of thing as well. So those you basically go there, and then you choose within there all of the different things that they've got demoed up. But yeah, very fast. And once you've done that, and done that a few times, then you get the idea of all of the bits and pieces you need in order to make one of these yourself. Like, this is the easy way, but you still need to provide it with pizza type, size, all of the things you'd expect. But once you kind of go through that process, then you're probably in a better position to actually write the Lambda functions for yourself.
Can you see the Lambda function that it's written?
No. Well, I haven't found it yet, because it lives in Alexa's world. But if you create your own, actually, it doesn't have to be a Lambda function. It can be just
what it does. It'd be nice
just
to actually see what
it can be a web
actually
server. It just needs a response. It just needs. But yeah, you need to. It will be provided to you with a bunch of JSON, which it has worked out from what people are saying, and then you're expected to respond correctly to that. So yeah, I mean, with Lambda, you've got all the power and so many fruit guns. So be very, very careful until you know it's working properly.
So, when you publish your skill, Alexa, is that in your account namespace?
Yeah, so the first time you make it, it will be in you'll see it in your app, and you enable it for yourself, and then you test it. You basically stick talking to the machine for a while. Yeah. But then at that point, you can publish it, and then I think it goes up to the Alexa skills. There's a whole bunch of these already up there. So people have written skills that then it's publicly available to anyone, I think.
So how to do with the namespace hashes was turn lights on. You publish it.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, that's why I'm calling it a namespace. That was my take on it. But I think the idea is it should be the company or the
it's basically the skill that you're asking to do. The thing is named at the end, isn't it? So
yeah. So if you've ever tried to get the BBC to play something, it's a real pain. But if you add from BBC, it gets much better at working out. Like if you're trying to get, I'm sorry, I haven't a clue on Radio 4. It's quite tricky because sometimes it will run off to Spotify and try and find something similar. But if you say from BBC, you're more likely to actually get it.
How long does the publish process take? Because previously you used to publish things and you'd get feedback saying it doesn't work in this environment, or
actually,
that namespace is taken.
I've not published anything, so. But yeah. Well, I know we talked about trying to get train times working for the shop, so.
Do you know whether you can when you publish now, is it published everywhere, or is it just for one specific market? Because it used to be UK or US or
I think it's just UK. Right. I think I'm not sure actually if you can expand beyond that, but presumably you need. Yeah, I'm lying. I don't know.
Alright, that probably knows any namespaces. That's all.
The namespace thing is a real issue, because if you don't claim it, then if somebody claims to be Pizza Express, I don't know how they solve that. I mean, it'd be fun to try, and you'll see that. You'll get cease and desist from somebody.
So, how would you go from a simple blueprint model there, where you specified what the sort of variables are, they're set, to being able to say, because what I was trying to do when I wanted to do a countdown thing was I wanted to have a countdown to a holiday, but I wanted anybody to be able to use it and say, I'm going on holiday on the August, and then for it to remember that, and then give you a countdown. So
we talked about slots. You can ask for more information, so you can have a tree that you work through. So you invoke the request saying, I'd like to go on holiday, then you can ask further questions and that too. And then actually what it asks you to do is, you've got to think of the user journey in terms of voice. So.
And presumably you need something that's going to actually store responses outside of Lambda or wherever else, because that's
well, it won't hit Lambda until it's worked out. So
you need to store the responses. If you're storing something that you're going to come back to later, like, you know,
Oh,
with a lot of these skills, it's something that you might want to add it to your morning routine. So when you say good morning, it will say, here's the news, and oh, by the way, you're going on holiday. So
I'm not sure it must have some kind of level of cookies. There's certainly a bunch of settings you can set, and there's also lists you can maintain, so my to-do list or my shopping list and that kind of thing. So there is some notion of persistent storage in there. So.
Okay.
Maybe stored against the account.
But I was thinking if you have control of the landing, then you could put it into some other server, dining with DB or something like that.
Okay.
Is there an equivalent for Google Home?
Publishing, I don't know, I presume it must be. It does the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I know you can create routines on Google Home, like you can for Alexa, so that's sort of almost like just taking skills that already exist and putting them into your own kind of order, but I don't know.
I don't know about custom mode.
I've not looked.
Is there anything for Siri? Because that's kind of the Apple equivalent as well. So any Apple developers?
I've never seen that. Yeah, but
Not as easily accessible, I don't think. I think you'd have to be an Apple developer and, you know, actually it would have to be an app that you published to the App Store, so it'd have to be part of an app that's published to the App Store for Siri. So this looks like a lower barrier to entry.
The way Amazon work as well, the sheer volume of voice data they receive improves their machine learning too. So if you can imagine all sorts of accents and background noise and all of that being thrown through this, all of that is going to make their machine learning algorithms better than the rest, really. So they're looking to get high volume through this if they can. So making it easier for developers is good because the device becomes more useful. So they get higher volumes through, they get better products. You know,
So I thought of this product because a lot of people say they don't want this in their home because of privacy.
Yeah.
And I saw there's this open source voice detection that you can actually have offline. So I was thinking maybe you could make this kind of product that you say like Alexa or whatever is your keyword is, and it flips open, and then you say your Alexa command. Would anybody be interested in something like that?
I'm afraid it's been done.
I take
Has it?
Yeah, it's called Parasite.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, somebody sent me a link to it earlier, so and I had seen it before, but yeah, it's a little cat that sits on top of the voice device and waits for a different wake word and then does like a pass through to the device. So yeah,
amazing.
Somebody's beating you to it
tonight.
Yeah.
Well, my take on that actually is if you're worried about the security and privacy concerns, then you're carrying that with you every day. So you already have microphones all around you all the time. You know, your tin ball hat takes you there. I don't know. I think they probably are listening, but I've not managed to. Everyone's and it's good news and bad news. Everything going in and out of it is secure and encrypted.
Yeah.
But we don't know what's going in and out of it because it's secure and encrypted. Yeah, all good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was useful. Yeah.